The information presented in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not meant to be a substitute for clinical mental health treatment. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 988 or head to your nearest emergency room. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. We just wanted to let you all know that this is going to be our first two-part episode. So you all will get this week's episode, and then in 2 weeks, we'll follow up with the end of the segment. So it'll look a little bit different. We had a lot to say about this topic of anxiety. So we just wanted to give you all a disclaimer. Also, you will notice that my light shifts a little bit throughout the video, a whole lot of it actually. The sun was going down on me, but that's how long we were talking. That's how good the conversation was. So if anything, hopefully it'll give you some excitement to listen to this episode. And until then, we'll see ya. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
How do you deal with your anxiety? I guess this kind of goes in different types of interventions. So we could talk about interventions in terms of professional treatment, but then also self-help and other support strategies. Look at me, E1 and E2. Hey, Algie, if you haven't taken mental health first aid with me, go ahead and take it with me. It would be helpful if you did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it would be helpful if you took. I'm shitting on y'all.
Right. Dr. Walker. So I was going to ask you, how do you deal with, so let's talk about maybe share the interventions with them and then talk about how do you manage your anxiety?
Absolutely. All right. So some of the interventions for anxiety include, of course, different forms of therapy. So there's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's sort of teaching you that your thoughts will affect your behaviors, which will affect your emotions. So it's like a triangle. If you've ever been in therapy and they showed you like that little sketch or picture,
or just Google CBT triangle and it'll pop up.
Yeah, so it teaches people different ways of thinking, behaving, and reacting to situations to help you feel less anxious and fearful. There's also exposure therapy, which is another CBT method. It's used to treat anxiety disorders, and it focuses on confronting the fears underlying an anxiety disorder, and helps people engage in the behavior or activity that they've been avoiding. Yeah.
Jordan know what I'm talking about.
There's medication, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, and beta blockers. Support groups are a huge help for people that have anxiety. And then different stress management techniques that people can use, like mindfulness, meditation, journaling, exercising, things like that can help. For Jordan, me, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. As you were talking, y'all don't kill me. Y'all gonna be like, T-Kea always talking. No, when you were talking about exposure therapy, child, I thought about how I used to have my Okay, I'm not gonna say used to. It's not as crippling. I used to stop going outside to go on my walks and my runs because I had this terrible fear of ant holes. Oh gosh, just thinking about it. I at that one time I was in Puerto Rico and it started raining on the sand. Like it started raining. So, you know, if it rains in the sand, little holes come. Y'all, I ran off the beach. I was scratching. I was just, my mother was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I was screaming. I was crying. Y'all, child. It has gotten much better. I still go outside, but I'm not going to lie. Every time spring creeps around, like now I started going out to walk because it's getting warmer. My eyes still drift off, but I'm not going to stop. I keep going because the more you avoid the behavior, the worse the anxiety gets. So I still go. I don't really know what I think. I don't know if I think a whole bunch of ants are just going to come up and attack me. I don't think that. It's just something about the way it looks that just creeps me out for whatever reason. So you never will find me Googling ant holes.
Right.
I'm just not gonna do it. So the point that I'm trying to make is like exposure therapy is something that I actually my therapist had worked with me on. And
Mhm.
so while it's not crippling to the point where I won't go outside, I still do get a little freaked out, but I'm not running away crying. And I'm still trying to manage that because now as the weather breaking, I was outside the other day, I was looking and I was like, oh gosh, it's about that time.
Yeah, you know what? I want to try exposure therapy. So I am a lifelong arachnophobe. It's gotten a lot better. Um because for instance, like I'll take my dog walking, and if I felt a spider web hit me from like a tree or something, the walk was done. Like we're going back to the house. But now if I feel one, I'm still gonna freak out a little bit. But I think to myself, like, girl, I'm so much bigger and stronger and faster than this spider. Like, okay, if I see it on my shirt, I can just brush it off and keep on moving. Like, it doesn't have to completely stop me from doing my outdoor activities. But for me, the bigger the spider, the worse it is for sure. My fear is primarily the giant spiders. So we're talking like wolf spiders, tarantulas, that mm-mm, mm-mm. But I'm going to try to do some exposure therapy, but I'm scared.
I don't know. You on your own with the spiders, okay? I see
Oh,
you when I see you.
just awful, awful, awful. Like for
I'm sorry.
instance, no, this is actually a good point because I want to my cousin traveled to Brazil, and I think you had even showed me something about this at one time where you could like camp in the jungle and they have like those little treehouse things.
Oh yeah, and you was like,
Sh- what am I
uh-uh.
gonna do if a tarantula comes in? No, I can't do that. So like there are things that I want to do, but my anxiety and my fear of spiders keeps me from doing them. But now that I hear that you've tried exposure therapy a little bit with your Dr. T, maybe I can talk to my therapist about it too. But
Mhm.
so for the most part, the interventions that I've used, definitely CBT. I gotta shout out my thought record as I have a few times since we started this
Mhm.
podcast, because that's
Queen of
literally,
thought records, okay?
yes, that is literally some good CBT practice. It seems so strange at first, but it will help you. And the more you practice it, you'll be able to sort of do it on the fly, and it does help. Um, if you are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see a thought record on your screen. It is the same one that I use each time that I make use of this technique. If you're listening to the episode, I'll describe to you what I'm seeing, but it's a 7 column chart, and each of the different columns, there is a header that's going to represent what you're going to write down at the bottom. So the first one is the situation or trigger. This is the whatever incidents is going on in your life that is providing or that is causing you distress rather. um it could be anything. So next to that there is a column that's called feelings. So you're going to list down your emotions, whatever you may be feeling: anger, sadness, rejection, loneliness. And you're going to rate those feelings on a scale of 0 to 100 based off of how intensely you feel them. You can also make note of any body sensations that you may be experiencing. A lot of those signs and symptoms of anxiety that we mentioned earlier will probably go into this column. And then the next column, there are unhelpful thoughts and images. So this is where you're going to write down your feelings about the situation or the trigger. Um, so you might put something like, I feel like I'm a failure in response to the situation, or I feel like I'm not loved. I feel rejected. I'm ugly. I'm worthless. Things like that. And what you're going to wind up doing for this unhelpful thoughts and images column is you're going to select the thought that most strongly resonates with you and the one that's causing you the most distress. And then you're going to use that thought to sort of complete the last 4 columns of the chart. So next to the thoughts unhelpful thoughts and images, the column is facts that support the unhelpful thought. So a lot of times our thoughts and feelings about ourselves or about a situation, they are rooted in some sort of reality. So there may be some things that have happened to you that would indicate that your thought that you experienced in the previous column isn't completely off base. So you're going to write down all the things that would be in support or evidence toward the unhelpful thought. And the next column after that is facts that provide evidence against the unhelpful thought. So these are all the things that would sort of challenge the way you feel about yourself or challenge that unhelpful thought. Um, because chances are it's not all doom and gloom. There's things that you've done if you feel like a failure. You've probably done tons of things over your life that were positive for you and that you were successful in. So there's some evidence against that thought. And then after that, the sixth column is alternative, more realistic, and balanced perspective. So you're going to take what you wrote in the facts that support your unhelpful thought column and the facts that are against your unhelpful thought column, and you're going to use those to create a more balanced approach. So you could say something like, I felt like a failure. I may have failed at X, but I've excelled at Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. I'm not a failure. I'm just not perfect. And that feels a lot more balanced than saying, I'm a complete failure, because you have done things in your life where you've been successful. So after you create that more balanced thought, the last column is the outcome. So you're going to take the same emotions that you felt in the second column, which was feelings. You're going to rewrite them in the outcome column, and you're basically going to give them another score. So if you felt 100% completely hopeless in column number 2, hopefully by the time you do the thought record for column number 8 in the outcome, it'll go down to 40% or 30% or 0% if you can get some of your emotions down that low. But basically what it's doing is teaching you to reframe your negative thoughts, because we don't have these emotions for no reason. There's probably something that happened to us in the past that would make us feel like that thought is truthful. But there's lots of things in our life that probably go against that too. So you can basically create a more balanced idea. You're not a failure. You may have failed at this thing, but you've succeeded at all these things. So hopefully that makes sense for the people who are listening and
They probably
watching.
like listening. They probably like, what? And it's 7
Right.
columns. You said outcome was the 8th column. It's the 7th
Oh, I'm
column,
sorry. Look at me. I
but
can't
it's
nap.
no, it's okay. No, I thought this was really good though. We'll be sure to add this link into the show notes so you can actually use this. I know it's probably hard to understand listening or maybe even watching, but I think if going through this would be helpful, because it made me think about the situation when I was laid off. You know,
Hmm.
I felt like I wasn't good. I didn't have these skills. Like I just went through all of that. And then ultimately it's like, no, that wasn't the place for you. Cause you
Right.
do a lot of things. I do a whole bunch, right? Okay.
Yes,
Look, I got,
absolutely.
so I had to tell myself, I had to pull out that resume and all of my awards to be like, girl, you that girl. But ultimately it's supposed to challenge, challenge your way of thinking. And like you said, giving you a more balanced view, because those negative thoughts really do impact your emotions and impact your behaviors.
Yes. Um, Definitely check this out. It's a wonderful tool. Again, it's a little strange when you use it at first, but I promise you the more you practice it, the more it'll make sense. If you have a therapist and you're interested in going through it with them, um bring it to your therapy session. See what they say. They probably will help you go through it. If you don't have a therapist, that's okay. There's information at the bottom of each column that can kind of point you in the right direction as to what they're actually looking for you to write down in that column. Like there's some prompts there to get you thinking of the I guess, the direction they're trying to get you to go. But that's been extremely helpful for me. Um, Probably my number one anti-anxiety tool, to be honest. I've taken medications in the past. I've been on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, and I've been on beta blockers for anxiety. So that is helpful if that's something you're interested in doing. And of course, support groups. We have our own support groups. For those of you who don't know, there are Black and suicidal support groups. So it's always nice to sort of have these conversations with other people who are also sort of struggling with things, because then you don't feel like you're so alone. And as far as stress management, I journaled one time, but I'm gonna get back on it because to me, I find that to be helpful. Um, and I'm trying to practice more mindfulness as well, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult for me to do because I don't really focus that well right now. But these are the things that I use to sort of help with my anxiety. T-Kea, I know you got some different things. She's the exerciser, so we love that because exercising is great. It's a fantastic stress relief. I should do more of it.
It would be helpful.
I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, it would be helpful if I would do more exercising. That is true. So, T-Kea, if you want to tell everyone what you do for your anxiety.
Well, you said something. It made me think about something that you just said, and I lost my train of thought, and it's gonna drive me up a wall because you said something that you do. No, it wasn't a bad thing. It was something. It slipped my mind. If it comes back to me, because you said something, and I was like, dang, I need to ask her about that, but it's okay. Um, for anxiety, I mean, oh, that's what it was when you said I tried mindfulness. Have you ever considered guided meditation, or do you just try to do it on your own?
Yeah, so I have tried different apps on my phone, and that was a lot easier to do than
Right.
trying to do it on my own because I don't have a quiet mind like that. But the ones that I've done, they've been like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, probably at the most. And I did find that to be helpful. So there's some good apps out there if you all are looking for meditation, mindfulness, that sort of thing.
Yes, it just if they are not sponsoring us, but I will plug in Headspace and Calm.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great apps. If you're someone who struggles with a noisy mind, it is great because you have someone talking to you. They say even if your mind drifts off, it's not trying to get your mind to go blank. More so in those moments, it's bringing you back to the present because your mind will drift, especially if you are someone who struggles with anxiety. It's easy for your mind to drift, but I think guided meditations are great. So to answer your question, guided meditation is something that I also use. You talked about exercise. That is key thing for me to just stress management, depression, anxiety. It just does wonders for me. Whether it's it don't. I mean, I think the only reason why I like working out at the gym is because of the ladies. I think it's because of the gym. And now
Mm-hmm.
I have this is the longest I've been a member. Before when I've joined gyms a month, 3 months probably tops, but because it's more of a community, it makes it easier for me to go. Um, so that helps. But even if I wasn't going to the gym, I also enjoy walking as well. I enjoy running. I'm not a track star, but I, could do a little slog, a little slow jog. Okay. So that certainly helps me, and journaling is something that I do as well. I'm not a person who journals every day. That's not me. I more so journal when I like feel compelled to. So there may be gaps in between, especially when there's a lot going on. And of course, therapy. I just Dr. T all the way. At one point I was on medication, but I haven't been on medication specifically for anxiety in I don't know, maybe 7 years now. But I feel like it's gotten better because I'm able to reframe my way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So the anxiety is not as heightened because when I have a negative thought or a fear based thought, I'm able to challenge it quickly or I'm able to recognize it more quickly than I did in the past. And so I think that helps me. And then also just having somebody to talk to. Like I just text Jordan. I'll tell you about like what's going on, why my anxiety is so high, and just being able to have somebody to just
Mhm.
vent to. I find that that also helps me as well. But yeah, there are moments it does get really high. And then sometimes if it's that bad, I just go take a nap. I'm like, my brain is just doing too much right now. And I'm going to just go to sleep and just cut it off just so I could give my brain a break. So yeah, that's pretty much how I manage. And y'all, if you're listening, you probably this probably may be part two because this will be a two-part episode because I feel
Yes.
like we haven't we haven't going. Um, but I feel like we've talked. No, I feel like we've talked about a lot though in terms of like
Mhm.
how it shows up for us. But I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to. A lot of people can experience, and so I think we can move along. If you don't have anything else to add, move along to the spotlight segment.
So, for our spotlight segment, we always like to highlight someone who has passed away from suicide as a way of remembering that person and just honoring their legacy and what they've left behind. So, for today, I am honoring Malik Webber. He's a young man from Chicago who died by suicide on March 17th, 2020, at the age of 21. And I actually found out about him because there was a news article by the Chicago Sun-Times that was talking about how high the Black suicide rate was in Cook County, Illinois during 2020. Like, it was so bad to the point where I think they published the article in the middle of the year. And by June of 2020, they had already surpassed the total number of
Mm.
Black people that died by suicide in 2019. So that was like a really, really just time of distress for Black people in
Mm.
Chicago. For those of you who don't know, Cook County, Illinois is the greater Chicago area and includes the city of Chicago. Um, and I read about him and I was like, wow, like this article is very interesting. I'll be sure to link it into the show notes, but Black people were really, really suffering in Chicago at this time. And the article was kind of like talking about why they think this was, the effects of the pandemic. But it was something that I guess the city hadn't seen in quite some time. So to Malik Webber, just wanted to honor his memory and thought that was very interesting. It also talked a lot about young Black men dying by suicide in Chicago. So thought this was a good opportunity to highlight that because again, the thought that Black people don't die by suicide is completely untrue. That's sort of why this organization exists, is to challenge that and to get people informed because we got to make sure we're checking on our people. A lot of people are suffering in silence, and we want to raise awareness for that. So, to Malik, we honor your memory today. And for today's resource, it is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. This is the ADAA. They're a nonprofit organization dedicated to the prevention, treatment, and cure of anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, and co occurring disorders through aligning research, practice, and education. You can learn more about the organization on Instagram. They're at anxiety and depression underscore ADAA. And you can also check them out online at adaa.org.
I am getting into the community changemaker segment. So, this segment is designed to honor and celebrate Black mental health professionals, whether that's clinical or non clinical, who are doing great work within the Black community. This week's community changemaker, each episode, we highlight a Black mental health professional, whether that's a therapist, who are clinical professionals, or non clinical, such as recovery coaches or peer specialists, that we definitely need to shout y'all out more. But they are Black mental health professionals who are doing amazing work. And this week we are spotlighting Amber Benzinger. I believe that's how you say her last name. Pardon me if I got your last name wrong. But she's doing amazing work because it's so appropriate to bring her up because she has a huge social media following and platform surrounding anxiety. She is a therapist, but she talks about how she's a chronic overthinker, and that's her focus, helping people who struggle with anxiety. She also has a podcast, so I would encourage y'all to check her out. She is the creator of the Anxiety Lab, that's her Instagram, but she also has a podcast where she's the co-host of the Manage Mind podcast. And then also, I'm sorry, so she has three different things. So she has her Instagram, which is the creator of the Anxiety Lab, which is her platform. But then her Instagram is Amber underscore versus underscore anxiety. So Amber be she in the ring, okay? She is in the ring with anxiety. And that's her focus, helping people who struggle with chronic anxiety. So shout out to you, Amber. Thank you for doing this amazing work to help people work through anxiety because it is very challenging and very crippling for some. And we need mental health professionals like you as not just because you're a mental health professional, but because you have the lived experience, and who better to do it than Amber. So shout out to you, Amber. Thank you for what you're doing. Now over to the oh
Oh
my
my God.
God.
The foolishness. Are y'all ready for this
the
week's foolishness?
we got to tell the new listeners this segment is dedicated to all of the off the wall things that people have said as it relates to our mental health. So Jordan, what you got for us today, girl?
Mm, this is a classic right
Mm.
here. Stop being so selfish. I don't understand people that make the connection between suicidality and selfishness. And maybe because I've been there, but I always looked at it as a selfless act where I'm sort of relieving others of the burden of me. And I know that's
Mhm.
not rational, but it did not feel selfish to me at all. So it just I don't like when people say that suicide is something
Selfish.
selfish or like you're trying to hurt other people intentionally and that's being selfish. Mm-mm.
Mhm. Yeah. I've heard that it hasn't been said to me directly about my lived experience, but I have heard people say it about other people.
Mm.
And I think it's important for people to understand that many times when people are contemplating suicide, they usually have other people in mind. Like Jordan just said, it's like, oh, I won't be a burden. So to say that someone is being selfish, let's be clear. Y'all would not say that if somebody had cancer and they were so fed up with the struggle of cancer that they just like, you know what, take me out of here. I won't be in pain anymore. We would say, oh, they're no longer in pain and they're resting in peace. So let's
Mhm.
give that same level of empathy and compassion to those who are struggling with suicidal thoughts. So I'm gonna need us to stop saying people who struggle with suicidal thoughts or have attempted suicide or who have passed away that they're being selfish, because that's not the case. It is, unless you've been there, and if you don't know what it's like, I think it's really insensitive to say that to people. So that is the oh my God segment.
Yes, agreed. T-Kea, stop being selfish. Having that asthma attack over there. Suck it
Right.
up. Start
Suck
breathing.
it up.
You're being real selfish right now. See,
Right.
see how that sounds. See how that sounds not right. Same energy.
Right.
It's not right.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's it for today's foolishness. Moving on to the self-care segment. Okay, I'm feeling my check-in today, you all. So
Go ahead. Let's hear about it.
I had my rheumatology follow-up today, and it was very hard. Not in terms of going, but in terms of talking to my rheumatologist because I had a whole breakdown last time I saw him, and he was looking at me like he was ready to 5150 me. That's, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's like in California, that's the number when they're going to involuntarily commit you to the hospital because you're a danger to yourself or someone else. Um, he was looking like, normally he sees me every 3 months, but I think he was so concerned about me that he wanted me to come back in 3 weeks. So that was today. And it felt so awkward talking to him because I usually don't talk about my mental health diagnoses to other health professionals. And I don't know why. Because I feel like they're going to judge me or something. And so I told him today that I was so sorry for crying and breaking down in front of him at the last appointment. And he was like, "No, I'm really, really glad that you told me that you were struggling with your mental health. And now that I know that, like, I can help support you. And if there's something that you need, um, to reach out and let him know." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm always afraid, like, that people will perceive you just differently. And I know a lot of people who deal
That
with
stigma.
yes, with substance use disorder sort of experience the same thing because your doctor will look at you like, I saw it a lot in the hospital. That was for substance use and mental health disorders. Like, they just kind of they attribute everything that you're going through. Oh, that's just a result of your behavioral health issues, and I don't like that. So I had that conversation with him, and he reassured me that he was very, very glad that I disclosed to him that I was having some mental health issues, which they wouldn't have known because I don't think I ever wrote anything down from them, and I haven't been on any medication for mental health issues for years. So it wasn't even like they could look at my medications and be like, "Oh, she probably has something going on, depression or something," just based off the medication I was taking. So, yeah, I feel a little bit better now that I got to go back and talk to him, and I know he's not judging me. So I'm proud of myself for following up with my appointments. I feel a lot better physically. If I could just translate that over into feeling better mentally, that would be wonderful. But I am cleaning up my diet, which I'm so excited about. I'm doing an anti-inflammatory diet, and I'm hoping that that
So
will
no flaming hot Cheetos.
no flaming hot Cheetos. I gotta let them bad boys go. No Cheetos, and I'm eating a lot more like vegetables. I got me some organic chicken, y'all. I'm proud of myself. Okay, I got the organic chicken. Okay, so yeah, I'm trying to clean up my diet. I'm hoping that'll have some positive benefits for me, again, physically and emotionally. But I just wanted to let y'all know that I'm on the path of doing the right things and not trying to neglect my physical health because I know it affects my mental health. And I'm going to get back on my journaling too, though. So that's what I did for self care.
So that's what you did, and that's what you're working toward.
Yes. Oh,
Did you
yes.
make your appointment with your primary care physician that you mentioned episodes ago about getting your high blood pressure checked?
Mm-mm.
Okay, y'all, let's check in on
Mm-hmm.
that a few weeks and let's ask her because that was Dr. Walker's episode. That was it's been a little bit, so now we got to stay on her, y'all.
Yeah, it's been, I haven't been to a primary care doctor in an amount of time that is so ungodly I will not mention. No, I'm playing. Yes, I will. I have not been to a primary care doctor since 2017. I know. I know. I know that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So I'm definitely long overdue, but I have a recommendation for a doctor in the next county over who's supposed to be really, really good. So I'm really excited about that. I just have to call and make the appointment. But um, yeah, I'm trying to
Get
get
it.
my physical health together. So that's what I'm
You
doing for
got
self
4
care.
weeks. That's your
Okay.
deadline, okay?
Okay.
Four
Okay.
weeks.
I can do that. I can do that.
Okay, are you done with your self care?
I'm done with my self care. T-Kea, what are you doing for self care?
What am I doing for self care? I am proud of myself. So I am currently in this. program for the next 12 months. It's the Institute with the amazing Patrice Washington. She focuses on financial psychology. I love Patrice, okay? Like she is my big sister, mentor, like from afar. But like I talked to her, I got a chance to meet her. Needless to say, this month if you don't know, she has her 6 pillars of wellness in order to build wealth. And her whole thing is like chase purpose, not money. Because when you're walking in your purpose and doing what it is you feel as though your calling is, the money will come. And that sounds cliche, but she has like these 6 pillars of wellness. And money is a pillar, but in order to get the money, there are other areas that you have to focus in on your life. So all that to say, this particular month, we're working on space pillars. So I've been doing some spring cleaning this past weekend. I was on a mission. I was throwing stuff out because I was like, this feels really good, like energetically. And I never really thought about this, but even I was listening to another mental health podcast. Shout out to the Friend Zone. So I was listening to their podcast, and for their wellness segment, Hey Friend Hey was talking about how like she cleans and like does like with the seasons, because like energetically how that has an impact on you. And I felt so good because it was like I lost weight and I was throwing away, not throwing, I didn't throw it away, I have it in the bag, I need to do the Goodwill, but I was like, I need to give away clothes that I haven't worn, that I can't fit. Like, why am I holding on to this? And even like my therapist talks about that, like in the process of like dating. So she's like, if you're holding on to something that no longer serves you, how can you energetically make room for what you would like? Because it's taking up so much mental space. So, and Patrice Washington often talks about physical clutter in the mind is a physical manifestation. Like, so if you look at people's homes and it's cluttered, 9 times out of 10, mentally, they dealing with a lot of clutter. So I have been this past weekend focusing on that. I was doing like the deep cleaning type thing. That's where the mood that I was in, because I was like, dang, it's the spring. I'm feeling good. I feel like mood wise lifting. I'm just like, oh, this is great. So I did that as well. So yeah, I also took most of the day off because Jordan and I was supposed to record, and I was just like, I can't do this. Like I'm gonna take a break. So there was one day I had literally worked from like 6:30 a.m. to like after midnight. Now, granted, it wasn't straight. I did take breaks. I had stopped for therapy. Also had like meetings, but I was just working a lot because I have a lot that I'm juggling, and I'm preparing for this huge talk that I'm doing next month. And so I just was working on a lot, and I was like, T-Kea, you have to stop and take a break. Needless to say, self care for me was literally forcing myself to not work for most of that day. I really did not. That day, well, resting for me, I would like to absolutely do nothing. And that's what I'm working on. I'm like working on days to do, like when I say nothing, no cook, no clean, no nothing. Okay. That means order takeout, stay in the bed, like nothing. That's what I'm working toward. But this particular time, I just took a moment to step away from the computer. I played some music, and I was just cleaning. I was in my cleaning zone. That's pretty much what I was doing. I was throwing things away, and I just felt like a weight was lifting, because even if you have, which I feel like I have, um neat or organized clutter, cuz Jordan helped me declutter too, and it's just like, oh, it's not, but I feel like even if it is neat and contained, it's still clutter if you don't need it. Like, what's the point of holding on to it? So that is also what I did for self care, and I feel, it's like I just feel like I just feel like I'm making room for new things to come in. That's kind of what it felt. It was almost like a spiritual thing. It's the weirdest thing, but so I did that for myself. I started getting back on my sleep routine, that I'm getting back on track. Before I was like struggling, I was like some days on it, some days off, but I've been getting on it, and we're recording this episode pretty late, y'all. So as soon as we're done, I am jetting to the shower and to the bed. So I've been doing really well. I'm so proud of like being able to keep my boundaries. I legit told someone, I said, if you want to talk to me, I'm going to need you to call me before 7 or 6 o'clock, because I'm sleep usually between 8 and 9. 9 is like the absolute cutoff, but usually between like 8 and 8:30 is when I want to be asleep. So my boundary is, sorry, I'm off on a tangent. We need to bring Dr. Raquel Martin in here, Dr. Martin, because she talks about the difference between boundaries and rules. But needless to say, the rule was call me before 7, 6 o'clock. My boundary is controlling my behavior, not someone else. I am not answering the phone after 7 o'clock, Sunday through Thursday. Friday, Saturday, we got some wiggle room. But that was my boundary. And I have stood firm to that. I've been doing really good with that, not answering. I just got to get a little bit better about the whole texting thing. And what I also did for self care is I moved all of my electronic devices, like my iPad, my phone, Apple Watch, all of that, to the nightstand that I don't sleep next to. So that way, typically when I'm sleeping, it's easy for me. Like if I can't sleep, I'll just pick up my phone and start scrolling. But no, that actually does your circadian rhythm a disservice. You know, your body's trying to get on track. So I'm proud of myself. So my phone is literally, I have to like roll over, which I don't want to do, all the way to the other side. And I've been trying to set up different things to make sure I have a more restful sleep. And picking up the phone in the middle of the night is disturbing my sleep. So if I find that I get up and I'm having a hard time going back to sleep, what I did actually was pick up a book and I started reading. And then my eyes started getting heavy and I put on a night light, which was not like the blue light on the phone. So I did that. But yeah, so that's kind of where I have been. I just feel like I'm like focusing on different things. I feel like my sleep is getting better. Um, Working on my boundaries with my routine, trying to get back on track, because when that gets off track, literally, if I'm not sleeping, it's just not good. And then, of course, I've been getting back to my 5 a.m. workout. So I feel like I've been low key crushing it lately. Okay. So I've been doing great. I was looking forward to this segment because I was like, girl, you out here winning. Some days we crushing it and some days we not. And that's okay.
Proud of you. Sounds like you did some wonderful, wonderful self care.
I did. I did. Y'all should join the Institute. I'm just putting that shameless plug in the Redefining Wealth app, or check out the Redefining Wealth podcast with Patrice Washington. So I'll be sure to add those in the show notes too. But Jordan, do we have any announcements, y'all, that we need to mention? I think we mentioned Panama already, right?
Mm-hmm. And a support group.
We did. Yeah, the support groups. Well, by the time y'all hear this, the support group will have done passed, so that's okay. But we will have one in April, though,
Mm-hmm.
so stay tuned for that. We mentioned Panama. I will be speaking in St. Louis in April as well. I don't know if I mentioned this on the last episode, but at the Mental Health First Aid Summit, which is the pre-conference for NatCon. NatCon is a mental health conference by the National Council of Mental Wellbeing, who are the creators of Mental Health First Aid, or one of the creators of Mental Health First Aid. And they also have a variety of different trainings, not just mental health first aid. So that conference is amazing. Last year was the first time I went, and boy, it was a time. So um, Michelle Obama will be speaking at that conference as the keynote. Hey, Auntie Michelle. And I'll be speaking at the conference, the pre-conference before that. So it's literally like a week kind of worth of things, and I'm in that lineup. So I'm excited about that. And my goal is next year to speak at the main conference for next year. But this year I'm speaking at the pre-conference. But needless to say, I'm doing a TED style talk. So I will be in St. Louis doing my talk April 14th. And I'm very excited about it. So, and the funny thing is, it's all on self-care. So I'm excited. So we have that coming up as well. So, and we'll have lots more updates, but I think that's pretty much it. And then after I get back from St. Louis, me and Jordan will be heading to Panama City, Panama. So excited about that. And we'll be doing that. And yeah, that's pretty much all we have. I have some other things that I'm doing, but I could share that on my own personal Instagram because it has nothing to do with Black people die by suicide too. It is stuff under my consulting business that I'm also doing. So yeah, but that is it. So moment of inspiration. Jordan, do you want to take it away or you want me to do it?
Sure. So we wanted to give you all some quotes that we sort of live by to help manage our anxiety. And for me, mine is "Que sera sera." Whatever will be, will be.
Is
I
that
think
Spanish?
uh,
You
maybe
don't know?
Italian. Maybe it's one of those. It's one of those up in that area of Europe. And I think Doris Day performed this for one of those old timey movies, like back in the 50s. But yes, que sera sera means whatever will be, will be. There are things beyond our control. And sometimes you just gotta ride with it. So that's one of the
Gotta
ones
ride
that
the
helps me
wave.
with my anxiety. Yes. And shout out to the people who are on their path of recovery from substance use disorder. I use the Serenity Prayer. Um, God, allow me to, oh gosh, hold on, not me forgetting. My mind
The
just went
Serenity Prayer.
blank.
About the things that you can accept and the things that you can't change. It's okay.
I'm
We
gonna have
got
to go
it.
back. Yes, thank you, T-Kea.
Yes, yes, yes. Basically, accepting the things that you cannot change and the wisdom to something. The wisdom is blanking me, but just look up
Yes,
the Serenity Prayer. The wisdom to accept the things that you cannot change.
the
Yes.
courage to change
Um,
the things that you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's what it
yes,
is.
that's what it is.
It's been
There
a
we
long
go.
day, so y'all
It's
forgive me.
okay. Yes, we could just go ahead and just add the Serenity Prayer in the show notes so y'all could read it. But yes, it is a great poem or prayer. So yeah, I added two is worrying does not take away tomorrow's trouble. It takes away today's peace. And that is by Randy Armstrong. And it's so true because we're so busy worried about the future that we can't even enjoy the present. And that's something I've really been honestly working on, y'all, because I have been, people have been dropping, like dying from my, or dying in my life. They've been leaving like flies, just dropping like flies. And when I sit back and I think about the things that I'm stressed out about in the long run, most of the time, it doesn't matter. Like in the big scheme of things, and this is not to discredit or invalidate what I'm feeling because my feelings are real, but when I look at it from the perspective of losing so many people in a short time frame, that life is so short and life is so fragile. I'm spending my time stressing out about something or someone, and this is the space that I'm in. That's not to say, who knows, next week I could be like, oh gosh, but I'm doing my best to shift my perspective and thinking that in the grand scheme of things, I'm, God forbid, I may not even be here 5 minutes from now or next week. I don't know when my time will come. I hope I live till I look like a raisin and I go out like my great grandmother at 90 something years old. But when I look at the grand scheme of things, the problems sometimes are relatively small.
Right.
When I'm like, literally, I'm so focused on this thing that's driving me, that's really driving me up a wall, but it's taking me away from enjoying the present moment when tomorrow's not promised.
Right. Right.
So so I've kind of been in that space saying like it's okay, two things can coexist at the same time. I can be struggling with grief and trying to navigate that, but then also having, saying like, having a sense of peace that like things will work out. whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is that I'm dealing with. So that's kind of what it was. And then the other quote, not sure who it's by, but when thinking about life, remember this: no amount of guilt can change the past, and no amount of anxiety can change the future.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been a long episode. It's you look, listen, this is part 2. So y'all gonna get a 2-part episode. So thank you all for listening to our first 2-part episode of the Black People Die by Suicide 2 podcast, as we were recording this virtually and not in the studio. Please, we encourage y'all, follow us on all the social medias, which Instagram at Black People Die by Suicide 2, that is TOO, as well as TikTok. Follow us. Um, come out, not come out in person, but come to our support groups, y'all. We host them monthly. They are free. Shout out to the Black Women's Mental Health Institute, founded by Dr. Nadia Richardson, based in Birmingham, Alabama. Please come to our support groups. Reach out to us if you're interested in being on the podcast. We'll be sure to make sure that we start adding the guest request form in there if you would like to share your story. But yeah, please connect with us. We'll also be having some in person. We'll be doing some in person things for Mental Health Month. So stay tuned for that. But thank you all so much for listening week after week, listening to me ramble, because I feel like I took over the show today, y'all. But it's okay. The next show, Jordan, I'll let Jordan take
I feel like I was talking a lot too. I don't know. It's just
over.
it's a new platform. We're trying some new things over here. We're expanding. We talked about this in a previous episode, but you'll notice some changes. So we hope you all enjoy them. Feel free to give us your feedback. And until next time, we'll catch y'all on the internet somewhere. Bye.
Right, on the next episode, we should mention, yeah. So if you are new, sorry, I should mention, if you are new listening, we mentioned that, like Jordan said, some changes. So if you're watching on YouTube, we're still growing our YouTube. Our YouTube has a slow progress, but audio, y'all killing it. Y'all really be listening. But we working on YouTube is a whole different beast. But we thank you if you are subscribed and if you are watching. It does mean a lot, because it takes time to grow YouTube. But on YouTube, we have 2 episodes per month. One episode will always be in the studio for now, because as Jordan mentioned, we're also a nonprofit, so we're trying to cut back on some of the costs because we have other expenses as we are grassroots. And then the other episode will be virtual, like this episode. So just kind of bear with us, y'all. You know, we're not allowing anxiety to cripple us, even though we have to make some changes with the platform. And I feel like anxiety also like speaking to being a perfectionist, which is another episode, y'all, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna get into. But anxiety
Mm-hmm.
sometimes crippling, feeling like if it's not perfect, we can't do it.
Right.
And that's something I used to struggle with. And I say that to say, with the different changes that we're doing, the old T-Kea would have been like, no, if all of them not in the studio, we can't do it. If it doesn't look like this, we can't do it. We got to have the perfect lighting. It got to be this, it got to be that. But um no, it's okay. So I say that to say, um perfection, being perfect doesn't exist, and we're just learning as we go along with the punches. And the more we continue to do this, the better we'll get. So that's my tangent. But thank you all for listening, and we'll catch y'all on the next episode.